Thank you for joining me for another video. So I was asked this question a couple of weeks ago on the YouTube channel, on the in the what's the word for them? The comments of one of my videos that actually had nothing to do with anything that would even remotely be able to be considered Zionism. You know, I just think that it's funny that it was that video that presumably this was, you know, that video was the one that this individual watched, and they were just like, yeah, I'll just shoot a quick question to him. So the question was what I think about Zionism. So very first, before I get into anything else, I am a Zionist. I'm a proud Zionist, and also about 94 to 98% of the global Jewish population, which is only 15 million roughly strong, are Zionists, which leaves 2 to 6% of Jews, or of people identifying themselves as Jews, who are not Zionists. Now, generally, those 2 to 6%, almost forgot the numbers, those 2 to 6% of Jews, people who self-identify as Jews, who are opposed to Zionism, typically one of two things is going on there. The more common of the two is they have been misled about what Zionism is, either misled or outright lied to, and they believe it to be some sort of racist endeavor, some sort of a, you know, let's wipe out and genocide everybody that is not us sort of a thing. That's not Zionism, okay? And you're going to see that in this video. But the second category that people identify themselves as Jewish, but not as Zionists, would normally fall into is, you know, this is the less common one, is people who are completely and totally disconnected from their Jewish heritage, from their Jewish culture. All they know is, I am of Jewish descent, therefore I am a Jew. Maybe they did a DNA test, you know, a little cheek swab tells you, oh, you've got, you know, 0.03% Ashkenazi Jewish DNA or something like that. And they're like, aha, well, I'm Jewish on my dad's side of the family, I guess. You know, that must be where I get the name Goldstein from, or something like that, you know. And for those of you who don't get my joke there, according to Jewish law, you're not really Jewish unless your mother is Jewish. And the reason for that, it's actually very simple, and it's not a, you know, it's not meant to disparage against anyone or anything fun like that. The reason for that is you always know who the mother of an individual is. You don't always know who the father is. Okay, and in Roman times, and even before Roman times, when conquest and things like rape were common, who the father was often a matter of debate. Who the actual biological father was could have been a matter of debate. Not always, but it could have been. Okay. Off of that topic, back to, and the reason that it's a joke is because it was the father's father's side of the family, the one from whom he inherited his surname, which is a joke because that doesn't necessarily make him Jewish, especially if his claim to being Jewish is, you know, my DNA said that I have some Jewish ancestry. Jewish ancestry does not necessarily make you Jewish. It can, but it doesn't necessarily make you Jewish. That being said, let's get back to Zionism. Preparing for this video, I went online to several different dictionaries to see if I could come up with a common consensus for what Zionism is, and I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. Okay, do you realize how rarely I use the word flabbergasted? That's probably the only 2 times you've ever heard me use it, because I just don't use it typically. Sometimes I will, sometimes And the reason that I was so perplexed is because there is no single definition of Zionism that every dictionary online agrees on. I just think that's interesting that the dictionaries can't agree. In fact, most dictionaries actually struggle to even try to define it, even within their own whatever bubble they live in. They struggle to define. I think dictionary.com defines it as the ideology that led to the establishment of the modern state of Israel. Like, that's not a definition. That's not a real that doesn't tell you anything about it. That just tells you that the modern state of Israel was founded because of Zionism. That's all it says. That's like saying that Manifest Destiny is the ideology that led to the establishment of the United States of America. Yes, it is, but that doesn't actually tell you what it really is. In case you're curious, Manifest Destiny was the early American belief that all of the land of North America, between both, how do you call them, oceans, was destined, that it was preordained by God to be part of the same country, the United States of America. We saw how well that worked out, with Canada and Mexico and to be fair, with the exception of Canada and Mexico, yeah, U.S. goes from Atlantic to Pacific or Pacific to Atlantic. Just depends on which side of the country you're coming from. In my opinion, though, Atlantic to Pacific, because that was the direction of expansion. One of the dictionaries that I consulted is an online dictionary. I'm not going to tell you which one it is because it's not important. Said that, I'm not going to tell you its definition, but it basically had been infiltrated, the definition had been infiltrated and altered by leftist ideology, basically saying that it was a racist endeavor to get rid of indigenous populations to establish the state of Israel. That's also not true. In fact, none of that is true. But that brings us back to the question of what is Zionism. So Zionism, which by the way is a modern political movement, it began in the 19th century, Zionism did, as a secular movement. It's not a religious movement, it is a secular movement, meaning it's not based in, or it's not an inherently religious movement. It's not an inherently religious ideology. Although, to be fair, it is based on Jewish history, Jewish culture, Jewish religion, Jewish scripture, for that matter. And we're going to get into that here in just a bit. Zionism is really nothing more than, and nothing less than, the national liberation, the liberation movement of the Israelite people. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is we are tired of being everybody's punching bag. We're tired of holocausts, of pogroms, of inquisitions. We need to go home. There it is. That's Zionism. No speaking of any other ethnic groups that may or may not be in our home at that time. Just the belief that we need to go home. Not only that, it's also the belief that Jews have an inherent indigenous right to live in our homeland, and that we have the right to self-determination, meaning we have the right to elect our government of our choosing, or to establish a monarchy of our choosing, comprised of our people. Okay, there's nothing wrong with any of this. All of this is Zionism. I don't think that anyone's going to dispute that, but you are going to get the crazies out there that are going to say that it's racist. It's not. You are going to get them out there that are going to say that, though. But I digress. So I mentioned that Zionism has its roots in the Tanakh, in Jewish scripture, that it has its roots in Jewish history, in Jewish culture. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. So and I'm actually going to read part of it anyway, because my thoughts are all collected in my notes and they're a little bit all over the place in my head. So it all began, all of this Zionist ideal all began in the 19th century. You may have heard of Theodor Herzl, who was probably the I think they actually call him the father of modern Zionism. He was like, let's call him the godfather of Zionism. Okay, he didn't really birth it. It has always been our ideology, and by our I mean the Jewish people. It's always been our ideology since Abraham. Because God commanded Abraham to leave his homeland, to leave his father's house, and to go to wherever it is that God said to go. Okay? At the time, that was the land of Canaan, right? Today, that's roughly analogous to the modern country of Israel. It also includes parts of Judea and Samaria, which are also called the West Bank by those less educated, by those with an ideological axe to grind. It's called the West Bank. Also, Gaza. And I apologize about the noise. So, Judea and Samaria and Gaza are a part of Israel. And we'll get more into that in just a minute, but they always have been. God said, listen, go to this land. Actually, he didn't even tell him, just said, go here to where I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give all of that land to your descendants. Now, God promised Abraham that he would bless him, and he would make him into a great nation there. Text specifically says there, referring to the land of Israel, right? God promised him that he would give the land. God promised Abraham that he would give the land to his descendants forever. He even specified the borders of the land. And if you read your Bible, if you're familiar with the book of Genesis, which we're going through, and we'll eventually get to it, you're going to see that God didn't just promise him the land that Israel, the modern country, exercises its sovereignty over. He actually gave to Abraham and his descendants after him, which includes myself, all the land from the river of Egypt, that would be the Nile. It's generally assumed to be the Pelusiac branch, which is the easternmost branch of the Nile River, meaning that the Nile marks the western border of Israel, and the Euphrates River. Okay, if you know your geography, you know that that is a massive chunk of land, of which the modern day country of Israel only inhabits like this much of. Okay, not very much at all. And he even went so far as to say that the covenant and the land would be an inheritance of Abraham's descendants. Now, the covenant exclusively belongs to Israel, specifically those descendants of, and I'm defining Israel, those descendants of Isaac and Jacob. Okay, Isaac had two sons, Yaakov and Esau. So Yaakov, Jacob, was renamed Israel at one point. So Israel is the descendants of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, right? So the covenant was exclusively given to Israel, meaning that only Israel has a divine right to the land. This is within the Torah's worldview. Coincidentally, it also happens to be the Quran's worldview. This is explicitly stated in the Quran, that God gave the land of Israel to the children of Israel. It's just weird that the majority of our opponents are Muslims who claim to believe the Quran. They don't. They believe in their traditions that have actually taking them away from what the Quran says. But I digress. So it only says that Israel has the exclusive rights to the land of Israel. Now that does not mean that we can't allow anyone else to live there. Just to further drive my point home, there are 2 million Arab citizens of Israel of varying religions. You've got some who are Christians, some who are Muslims, some are Druzim, some are other faiths, right? Some are Bnei Noach, some are whatever, basically any religion that you could think of. Theoretically, these Arabs could belong to. There are about 2 million Israeli Arab citizens, or should I say Arab Israeli citizens, as opposed to Jewish Israeli citizens, and other smaller minorities as well. So all that the covenant really says is the land belongs to us. We are uniquely given the right to it, the title deed to it, right? And that we have an exclusive, unique, and if I can get away with saying it, very special relationship with our God. Okay? Those are the terms of the covenant. And it's all on God's side too. That's the best part. I'll let you read about that in the Torah if you want. So we're not prohibited from allowing other people to live there with us. We are, however, prohibited by the Torah. This is just kind of a side note, from allowing another, someone who is not from the Israelite nation. We're not allowed to appoint them as a leader over us in our homeland, in our country. Okay, so you will very likely never see an Arab Prime Minister of Israel. You might, but you probably won't, because it is a Jewish state. I don't know, maybe there are laws to prevent it. I don't know. I haven't looked that closely into the laws for it. Unless you think that the covenant could have passed from Abraham also to Ishmael, like some Muslim groups claim that Ishmael, really, he's the covenant bearer, not Isaac. The Torah specifically tells us that it passed from Abraham to his son Isaac, okay, which excludes Ishmael, and from Isaac to Jacob, which excludes Jacob's brother Esau, okay, and then from Jacob to his children, his 12 sons, right? Now I realize that Islam teaches that Ishmael was included in the Abrahamic covenant. There are even those who go so far as to say that, as I mentioned earlier, that he was part, that Ishmael was part of the covenant, but Isaac was not. That's from people who maybe they're not as familiar with the Torah as anyone who has ever picked it up and read it. They just don't know. But to be fair, Islam also teaches that we falsified our scripture, which is a laugh, because, Jews existed for 2,000 years before Muhammad was born. Okay? In 2,000 years, and then you've got Muhammad born, not even Jewish, not even from the Israelite nation, not even, he wasn't anywhere near the land of Israel. He didn't have access to the same education that his Jewish counterparts, who lived very nearby him, would have known. He only knew like bits and pieces that he heard in passing. And that's actually, it's funny because it's actually incorporated into Islamic ideology. And what makes it even funnier, from my perspective anyway, is that
uh, they will defend it tooth and nail. And really, a lot of times, these are traditions that are not literal. They're metaphors. They're allegories. So they're not even real, like historical traditions. They are teaching traditions. For example, there's a tradition that when we were at Mount Sinai, God picked up the mountain and held it over the entire nation of Israel, and basically threatened us, you're going to accept the Torah or I'm going to drop this mountain on you. Islam believes that is literal. But the Torah tells us that if that's the case, then it was a coerced adoption of the Torah, and therefore it's null and void. So it wasn't literal, it was a metaphor, it was an allegory. It was to say as if God had picked up the entire mountain and dropped it on us, and threatened to drop it on us, meaning that the revelation of God at Mount Sinai was so strong it couldn't be denied. Okay. That being said, let's move on just a little bit. So as it happens, the Quran itself actually says that Abraham's prayers for divine guidance for Ishmael was really all that happened. There is no mention of Ishmael being given a covenant in the Quran. And I'm okay with the Quran saying that because the Torah says basically the same thing. Abraham says to God, oh, that Ishmael, may he live before you. And God says, listen, man, pay attention. The covenant's going to pass through Isaac. Okay, I'm going to bless Ishmael too. I'm going to bless him. I'm going to make him into a great nation. 12 princes are going to come out of him. But really the covenant's going to go through Isaac from your wife. The one that,
just had a baby. So, that's all I have to say about the Torah's portion on that. So what are the historical arguments
against Zionism, against the belief that the land is Israel's and that Israel has the exclusive right to live there and to govern ourselves there, to have our own country. An exclusive right, again, does not mean to the exclusion of others living with us. It only means that it is our land. Okay? If I have a book, it's my book. I alone have the exclusive right to read that book. But if you ask me, hey, Judah, can I read your book? I'll probably lend it to you. I might even tell you, hey, no, it's yours now. But I'm almost certainly going to lend it to you. Does that make it no longer my book? Well, no. It just means that I'm allowing you to make use of it as well. Same thing happens in the land of Israel. It is Israelite land, but that doesn't mean that nobody else can live there with us. Okay? So one of the arguments against Zionism, and this is actually an historical argument against it, is that the people of Israel angered God. We did. It's all over the Tanakh, all over it. We angered God. He exiled us. He did. It's literally written in the text. You'll even find it mentioned in the New Testament, okay, in the Christian Bible. But the argument is that because we angered God and He exiled us, therefore God abandoned us. He cast us off as His chosen people, and He chose somebody else to come in and to live there. And historically speaking, this has been the claim of Christianity and the claim of Islam. Now, to their credit, both Christians and Muslims have many people among them today who completely and totally reject that ideology, that idea that God rejected Israel and we no longer have a claim to the benefits of the covenant, which would include the land, but also our unique relationship with God. So to their credit, there are many Christians and many Muslims
who completely and totally reject that. And it's interesting that it actually comes from the Christian side. It actually comes after the Holocaust, when they literally sat down. There was actually, the Roman Catholic Church actually held a council, the Second Council of the Vatican, where they decided, no, the Jews weren't rejected by God. We still have, a unique relationship with God because God's calling is irrevocable, but, who knows if we're really, if the Jewish people are really saved, if we're really going to heaven, which is nonsense. We don't care about that. You guys go to heaven, that's fine. We'll stay here. I'm okay with that. To all the Christians in the crowd, I apologize for my for just how pedestrian I am with all of this. I mean, no disrespect, not to Christianity, not to Islam, not to Christians, not to Muslims. I think it's funny, so I'm laughing. Probably shouldn't be, but that's okay. What's funny is, after a Holocaust, after inquisitions, after pogroms, after persecutions, expulsions and everything, then the Christians are just like, I don't know, guys, maybe we need to tone this down a little bit. Like, just a little bit, though. Coincidentally, that was actually when a lot of modern Christian groups started rejecting the what's called supersessionism. It's the belief that the church has replaced Israel as God's covenanted people. It's also called replacement theology. I like supersessionism, though, because it sounds cooler. Plus, if you just walk up to someone off the street and you're just like, hey, what are your thoughts on supersessionism? They're just kind of like, wait, what? And I love the wait, what factor, I am way off topic. Let me look at my notes and see where I should be. So it is a good thing that these Christians, these Muslims, that they're waking up, that they are getting rid of this anti-Israel, anti-Zionist bias. It's to their benefit because God very literally said that he would bless those who bless Israel. It's in the Torah. I don't have to prove to you that that's the case because, listen, it's a promise from God in the Torah, okay? God can prove it to you if he wants to, okay? But I think that the fact that we're still here after 3,000 years, 3,000 plus years, I think that that fact alone speaks to the fact that God is faithful to keep his promises, okay? Now, God has already promised us that he is never going to abandon Israel, and he will eventually return all of Israel to our homeland, okay? You're going to find that actually in the Torah itself. You're also going to find it in the prophets. A lot of the prophets assured us that God would cause a national Israelite, what word do I have here? Restoration to our land and sovereignty within our homeland, with Jerusalem as its capital and the descendant of King David sitting on the throne. Okay, and there are a lot. I think it's like 10 prophets specifically say any of those things that I just said multiple times. So I don't know. When I go in and edit this video, I'm gonna add references for you. Now there are a lot of people out there who identify themselves as anti-Zionist. The idea, of course, being that they are against Zionism. And they tend to draw a distinction, most of them, between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, right? There is no distinction. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Let me explain what I mean by that, okay? Anti-Zionism is the belief that Zionism is wrong. Zionism is morally wrong. Zionism is religiously wrong. Religiously? Is that, I mean, that's a word, but like, does that fit here?
from a religious perspective, there we go, that's wrong. From a moral perspective, that's wrong. That sort of thing. That's the idea behind anti-Zionism. But the defining characteristic of anti-Zionism is every nation, every ethnic group on the planet has the right to live in their home territory and govern themselves how they so desire, except the Jews. How is that not anti-Semitic? How is that not racist? And many, I just think it's interesting, many of those in Western nations who claim to be anti-Zionist, not anti-Semitic, right? They also will advocate for indigenous rights to their homelands, right? In the United States, you've got Native Americans, who there are quite a few in the anti-Zionist, not anti-Semitic camp who will fight tooth and nail, indigenous rights for the indigenous peoples of the Americas, and I'm on board with that. I'm right there with them. Okay, I'm right there with them. Indigenous rights for the Maori, I'm right there with them. Okay, indigenous rights for the peoples of Africa, okay, I'm right there with them. But not indigenous rights for the indigenous people of the land of Israel. And that's where they went too far. That's where they screwed the pooch, okay? That's where everything just sort of went horribly awry, because now they're being hypocrites. Everybody but the Jews has the right to go home. The Jews have to live in exile. The Jews have to be persecuted. The Jews have to be submitted to, pogroms, expulsions from countries, inquisitions, the Holocaust, God forbid. That's what these people are saying. That is the core principle of anti-Zionism. Coincidentally, that is the core principle of anti-Semitism, that combined with just a general hatred of Jews. Now, these people may not consciously hate Jews, and I'm not saying that they do, and I'm also not saying that they don't. A lot of them do, however, exhibit all the classical signs of anti-Semitism. And the ones that don't show those signs typically get elected to office, which means they're not actually showing their true faces. Zoran Mamdani. Although he was pretty open about not liking Jews. Anyway, does that mean that Jews alone can live in Israel? No. 2 million Arabs who are citizens, full rights, equal opportunities. They serve in the Knesset, the parliament. Okay, they serve in the military. They serve in the police force. Okay, as it happens, non-Jewish citizens of Israel, you could actually argue, have more rights than Jewish citizens of Israel, because Jewish citizens of Israel are obligated to enlist in the military. They're obligated, they are required legally to join the IDF. Arabs are not, but many do. Many willingly volunteer. They're not obligated to. Which is racist, but it's like, not racist on the Jews' part, it's racist on the part of, in the sense that it treats one race different from another race. It's not necessarily bad racism, although I would argue that, yes, it is bad, and all citizens of Israel should be held to the same standard, but they're not. Standards are looser for non-Jewish citizens. I just think that's interesting. That's all I got. Because that's all Zionism is. The belief that the Jewish people can go home. Back to our homeland, back to the place where we became a nation. We could live there in peace. We could live there under our own government that we put in place. That's all Zionism is. Now you're going to get different opinions of how exactly that should be interpreted. And you're also going to get different opinions that are going to be more, you get more right, far right, right to far right, who may be a little bit more willing to kill anyone that, opposes it. You get people more on the left that are, if the left there is anything like the left here, it's really just going to be, a bunch of complaining. You can't do this to them. No, they're probably, in all honesty, the left in Israel is probably trying to destroy the country, very much like the left here in the United States seems to be trying to destroy the country. But I digress. I am done. So I hope that you found this video to be interesting. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Okay, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, go ahead and subscribe. Make sure your notifications for this channel are turned on so that you get an alert every time I put out a new video. If you're on Facebook, that's great, so am I. Just come find me, type into the search bar an unorthodox Jew, like the page and or follow it, and feel free to comment on anything that I post on Facebook, anything that I post on YouTube. There is some content that is exclusive to Facebook, so if you're into that sort of thing, knock yourself out, man. By all means, come by. If you have questions, which is what prompted this video, I love questions. I have answers. Might not have all the answers, but I know people, and those people know people. And I may not always give you the right answer. I will give you my opinion, and frankly, I think that that's all that anybody could ask for. Sometimes my opinion is not going to be in line with the majority. Sometimes it's going to be in the majority. Here, when it comes to Zionism, as a Zionist, I'm in the majority. Okay. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Facebook, YouTube, doesn't matter. Feel free to ask in the comments. No serious question will be dismissed. If you're asking stupid questions, a lot of people say there's no such thing as a stupid question. Those people have never been in the military. Yes, there absolutely are stupid questions. If you ask me a stupid question or a question that's designed, in such a way that it's meant to be hurtful, I'm probably not going to address it. I might, but I might not. If your question is something that is more of a private nature, maybe you don't want to make it public that you're asking, okay, go to my Facebook page and just send me a private message. We can talk about it there. We can, I can make a video about it, if I feel like it's one of those subjects that we should really address. That being said, I am done. The next video that I am, God willing, going to release next week, during the week, not on, the Sunday, Monday area, which is where we're doing our Genesis, our walk through Genesis. But next week, middle of the week, God willing, I am planning to have a video about, I was actually asked about, from a Christian, about the different Jewish groups mentioned in the Gospels. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about them, God willing, next week. So until next time, shalom.